Well, just want to point out that for the mid-cap index, it's shaved off a little more. It's still holding up and outperforming up around 0.4%, but it's come off a little bit from the day's high. The advance decline ratio is a good parameter for today in terms of at least going on the advancing side. So that's managing to sustain 1,000 stocks advancing to 853 stocks which are declining. Just watch out for a couple of stocks such as Tata Motors, which has in fact gained around 8.5%, almost 9% this week itself. So it's been a good pullback for Tata Motors, up around 1.8% today, and 186 rupees for that stock. But let's shift focus back to the banking space. We have Yes Bank. The board is expected to submit the shortlisted candidate names to the Reserve Bank of India today. Abhishek is here with these exclusive details. Abhishek.
Well, Ekta, the board has actually approved submission of more than one name for the post of MD and CEO to RBI that they will send today. So submission of names will be sent today to RBI just 21 days before the, Rana Kapoor is to demit the office. Now, approvals from RBI, if you look at the history, actually takes much longer duration. So the new person, if at all they are an external person, may require more time to join, given the fact that they have to give in to the notice period, etc. So delay in RBI decision on candidates could actually lead to Rana Kapoor's term being extended. So alternatively, an executive or board member could be appointed as the interim CEO. So if you look at the current board members, only 2 board members who are above 65 years of age have actually the banking experience. So an executive interim CEO will have to report to the board, while an executive interim MD will need full RBI's due diligence. We also understand that already RBI, there are pending approvals for appointment of 2 executive directors on board is still pending with RBI. So period of uncertainty may therefore continue to weigh in on the stock price. And we had written to Yes Bank. Yes Bank wrote to us that will be guided by the regulator's advice. Back to you.
Okay, Abhishek, thanks very much for that. You know, let's actually get in 2 experts in the banking sector to talk about what's... actually a lot has happened in the banking space, and more will happen with earnings, etc. also starting to come through. Krishnan SV of SBI Cap Securities is with us on the phone line, and we'll be joined by Siddharth Purohit of SMC Institutional Equities in a bit as well. Krishnan, I don't know if you heard Abhishek talk about Yes Bank. The names will be sent to the Reserve Bank of India today. So, you know, for investors, what are the key things to watch out for from here? Of course, who will be the CEOs, anybody's guess, and lots of names doing the rounds, but that's just speculation. But should we expect more trouble ahead with the new CEO once the new CEO takes over? Some sort of kitchen sinking exercise, as some have been pointing to. What's your view?
Yeah, hi. Many thanks for having me on the show. Actually, on Yes Bank specifically, I think as long as you are able to get a name that can credibly run the bank, whether it's an internal candidate or an external candidate. So what investors, shareholders, what stakeholders really need to really want to see is whether the franchise can run at its full potential, right? So there are obviously pieces of the franchise which are still a work in progress, like the retailization on the liability side, etc. So those have not been completely played out. So to that extent, Yes Bank is still a work in progress as far as that liability franchise is concerned. There are obviously asset side pieces that need to fall in place. So you need certain credible hands to help steady the ship, so to speak, number one. Number two, the moment you have a leadership succession in place, you can at least think ahead in terms of when the growth capital can be raised, right? So today the bigger issue is due to lack of growth capital, the growth will probably collapse to maybe early 20s, right? So that's the bigger issue. When is Yes Bank actually able to go out and raise capital from investors? So I think that's more likely to weigh in on earnings. That's more likely to weigh in on expectations than just the fact that whether there could be kitchen sinking. Once you have a credible name in place that's likely to lead Yes Bank, I think a lot of other things could be understood. You could patiently wait that out. Yeah.
What about the concerns on an asset quality review, Krishnan, for Yes Bank, irrespective of who could be the next name?
So my sense is anyways the Reserve Bank of India does this exercise on an annual basis now in terms of a risk-based supervision. We just heard IndusInd Bank yesterday when they reported their numbers. Their risk-based supervision cycle for FY18 is now done and dusted. So I'm sure that's an ongoing exercise when the dialogue with the regulator has with every bank. But Yes Bank will be no exception, I would say.
You know, Krishnan, when you say credible, they'd obviously think the names they'd send obviously would be names that they'd think the bank would think are credible names. But what you'd want somebody who's run a large banking institution. I mean, is that what is the market going to? How do you decide credible?
So I suspect you need a certain track record of having worked in large institutions, having run a bank in the past, etc. But also remember, I mean, there is a case in the very recent past, within the past 6 months, where another large private sector bank also had a successor coming in, but not from the banking system, right?
Yeah.
So I think credibility does matter. If you have had a track record running a very large bank in the past, or anywhere that you have run a banking practice in the past, I think a lot of those things do add brownie points in terms of how the regulator looks at it. But I don't think unless we can go ahead and say this is a desirable name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Siddharth Purohit of SMC Institutional Equities joins into this conversation as well. Siddharth, I wanted your thoughts on IndusInd. The stock is down 2.5%. If you had to pick out one key worry going into the coming quarters, what would it be?
Yeah, hi and morning. In fact, if you look at the broader numbers, has been pretty good. If you look at the growth numbers, has been much ahead of what I was expecting. Look at the credit growth, almost 32%. So there is no doubt about the capability of growth. But the concern still remains over, the market is still concerned about the quantum of provision the bank might have to take on the island FS exposure. If you look at, as it is known that, they have a 2,000 crores exposure to the holding company. And so far they have already taken 600 crore provision on that. So probably in Q4 we might see incrementally higher provisions, and that is probably taking one kind of little way on the stock. But I think market should now look forward beyond this island FS episode, because even if you look at one more quarter and they will be at 50% provision on this exposure. So my sense is that by Q4 this hangover will not be there, and that is one thing probably
what about
still
slippages
on the mind of investor, and they are still worried about it. Yeah, that is also one area of concern. If you look at couple of accounts which were very unlikely also slipped into this quarter. But having said that, I would say that their core portfolio, the CV and the consumer, consumer segment, if you see, the asset quality has really not been that worse, and the growth on that front has been pretty strong. So there might be if you look at every quarter you might see new sectors coming into play and some more accounts coming into slippages. But I think it could be one-off, so I'll not be really worried about it.
Okay. All right, Siddharth, as well as Krishnan, thank you very much for joining in respectively and talking about Yes Bank as well as IndusInd and the overall view with regards to those specific stocks, considering the amount of news surrounding them.